Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and this is the Road to the Record, where I work to achieve mastery of 10 games and hunt for the best score of the Decathlon. If you'd like to proceed, remember that like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. Let the games begin. This is F1 2018. It's week 51 of the Game Decathlon competition, but this is episode number 1 of season 2, so I'm in Australia. Second time we've been here. I've spent my entire first practice session trying to get the balance right, as the car itself is completely offset from one another. I have the best chassis on the grid by far, and I have the worst aero department on the grid by far, which is making it really hard to find a balance that works for this car. I think I might have finally found something here in the closing moments of FP1 with 1 second left in the session, and there it is. We got purple, and we were the slowest car on the grid for FP1, as that was literally only about the third lap that I've actually completed in the session. How slow are we though? We are on the softs.
Hamilton and Max Verstappen. That concludes an
Wow,
interesting
2.5
practice
seconds
session.
slower.
Let's hope for more excitement as the weekend unfolds.
Not good, not good. Surprisingly, Force India at the back, though. So taking a step back here after the intro for the video, we wrapped up the end of the season last time out in Yas Marina, so Abu Dhabi. Here are the excellent resource points that we gained at the end of the season. We can see from the race itself, we got kind of the typical 300 to 400 points, but then I got a team goal bonus of 500, and then I got another bonus of 1400 for end of season, so some points to put into the car before we actually enter the new season, where we just did the introduction for Australia. That was the team goal, where we got the 500 points. Before I can get to the car, we've got to take care of my contract. Here's the existing contract. We'll start negotiations for the new one.
Here you can see the current deal. Once negotiations begin, the team will make you an offer. You can accept if you like, but I strongly suggest we push for better terms.
Alright, so they can expect a drop, actually. Here, I was at 1616. I had a medium goal, but my value has gone up quite a bit from where it was. Now, I want to get this definitely all the way back. And the upgrade speed was already at this level. Now, this is one, it was only level 1. And I don't mind this staying at a level 1, as it has little impact overall. I mean, yes, it holds me up a little bit here and there, but in the long run, it has no real impact. Now, I was up to a level 2 on the quicker pit stops, which actually has an impact in my race, so I'm going to try level 3. So there's my first contract upgrade of any kind. Everything else has been exactly the same. Now, the team goal, the medium is what I've been getting, and I've been doing okay with those, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. Now, at this point, I've had just the one contract perk upgrade. My value was a fair amount higher. Here's a drop to 17, and I had been qualifying higher than I was necessarily finishing races, but recently, no, it's still the same. It's still the same. Qualifying's gotten harder, especially with my car. Maybe we try 17-17. Which means the only change, really, is I've got these two drop by 1 spot, and the pit efficiency up by 1. We'll try that. We've got multiple attempts.
We're asking for too much here. We
Okay,
need
it's
to
too
make some
high.
compromises.
Alright, well this is going to be pretty simple to see. We'll see how much of an impact I get by dropping these back to 16 and see if that's enough. If not, I have to drop that pit efficiency back to where it was at level 2, and then I should be able to get the... Well, I have to see how much it moves right now.
They didn't like
Oh,
those
not
terms.
much.
Let's try again.
Not much at all. Okay. So dropping that pit stop efficiency is going to drop it quite a bit. Which means I think I can get away with making these 17-17. Yeah, there we go.
All right, the terms have been agreed. All that's left is to sign the paperwork. You'll be on this new deal from the next race weekend.
Alright, so sadly the only thing I gained in the contract is the expected position, both qualifying and race, dropping by 1. But it's something, and my value is still quite a bit higher. It's just not quite ready yet on the pit stop efficiency level 3. Now if I were to bump up the position to like say 14-14 or something like that, we'd get pretty close, but I'd rather have my value a little bit higher first before doing that, so that way I can at least hang on to, you know, like a 15-15 or maybe that 16-16 where we were at before. But this will keep my reputation with the team quite high, and my value should continue to grow over time. And the rivals, I'm actually trailing or level right now. It's gotten a lot tougher here with that AI difficulty now above 90. And a little bit unlucky over the last couple of races. Okay, so I have no upgrades going onto the car right now, so I do have room for that. And as we entered this final race of the year, Toro Rosso has re-overtaken us. So we are the worst car on the grid. Ferrari at the top with about the same gap we kind of started the year off with. However, I've made some massive, massive upgrades departmentally. So one more look here at the R&D tree. I can't touch aero yet. The department fully upgrades. So once we get to Australia, I could dump some points into the aero department. Theoretically, I could accept the car as it is right now and jump into powertrain upgrades departmentally and get that on the rise with these 3,000 points and make some significant progress on that. Or I could combine that with at least some chassis progress, which I think that's what we're going to do, because I can get these great upgrades instantly as we are going to go through the off season. I might just target 1 or 2, which 2 is my max anyway. That's a minor upgrade, so I'm not going to do that. But these major upgrades, we've got 670 here, tire wear, heat dispersing wheel rims, there we go. Brake disc width. So that's a huge upgrade. That's an ultimate upgrade. It's a costly upgrade, but what a massive difference it would make in our braking going forward. This is the final weight reduction upgrade, and you can see also how significantly that would put us ahead in the chassis department. That would cost us close to 2,000. This is also the final weight redistribution one here with the fuel tank positioning. What does that open up? Another brakes upgrade, another brakes. So tire wear and brakes are kind of what we'll be down to in the chassis department. if we get these last 2 weight reductions, which would mean we would absolutely have the lightest car on the grid. I think we already do now that our chassis is above everyone. But I don't even think I need to necessarily do 2 here, just because we're going to be so far ahead in the chassis department. So maybe this final weight reduction, this ultimate upgrade, is good enough for now. Yeah, and see, it's going to be ready in Australia, even though it says 3 weeks. Alright, there we go. So that's going to be a pretty big boost to the chassis. That's going to push us up even further, well ahead of the rest of the grid. I think that's enough. I'm going to spend those 2,000 points going the other direction. However, I want to save some of these points for Australia. Let's see, 280, 280. I'm going to get both of those going once we get to Australia, so they'll be ready by the 2nd week, and our aero can finally start making up some ground. So I need to save about 600 points, so we can get those going right away. So I've got about 1,500 to spend here. Finally getting things started in the powertrain department. We did start with an advantage here, as we have that Mercedes engine, but everything else was bit further behind, and it looks like if we spend 1,000 on department efficiency 1, we're already using up what we've got, as these are pretty expensive upgrades. But as we can see from the chassis, a tactic of taking care of the department first really pays off. It makes things so much cheaper. It takes away the chance that you're going to have a failed upgrade, and then if and when the department resets, like the aero department is this year, it's going to cost me way less to cover all the parts for the next season and not lose anything. Meaning, by taking care of the department first, it holds me back in the short term, but in the long term of the game, massive difference. Alright, well, we're going to save those other points now, and I can't afford the next upgrade right now anyway, but we're going to save the other points for the aero department for the start of the season. And with the upgrade coming, it should get us back above Toro Rosso at the beginning of the season. Of course, at this point, I have no idea how many aero department upgrades are not going to be covered by other teams and how much of a drop we'll see. It's only the end of Season 1, so there can't be that many upgrades. Like the 17 I have already done in the chassis, that's not going to be matched by anyone else. They're going to have 4 or 5 upgrades, and they might have covered 3 of them, or all 4 or 5. So I don't expect significant drops in the aero department. But there should be some drops, and it could have an impact on our placement in the grid. So we'll see where we're at here in a moment. But we're ready to advance into next season. So Season 1 results, we can see we started off pretty well early on, highlighted by a 4th place in Austria. But all of those strong performances early on, I had 4 top 10s in the first half of the season. The second half of the season, I managed to get 3 top 10s, but the highest finish was 9th. The difference being that we started with a lower AI difficulty level, and it allowed me to get some decent performances in. Now the AI difficulty level is much higher and beyond anything that I've ever done in the F1 game before, and it's showing its impact as I had more consistent performances to what the car is capable of down the stretch, including my first ever DNF in Brazil. So before we jump into qualifying, we are now at Australia, so I can do my new upgrades. We can see the upgrade that finished, and I can also see my new team goal to start the season, which is to finish in the top 15 or better in the first 2 races of the season at least once. So that should be pretty easy to acquire after a 15th and a 7th place performance in those 2 races last year. But like I said, the AI difficulty level is higher now, so it's certainly not guaranteed. My car is still very much in the back. But our weight reduction, our final weight reduction, the front nose cone structure has been upgraded, and it is on the car here for the first race of the season. And weather in Australia looking pretty dry at this point. And a look at how the cars fared during the off-season. The Ferrari comes back better and stronger, as does the Mercedes. Red Bull comes with some huge upgrades, outmatched by only Renault, who has overtaken the Haas. The Haas looked like they went for a win-now strategy last season, did not cover their aero upgrades, and Haas sees a huge drop in performance. Force India, Sauber both come back about level, while the McLaren comes back a little bit stronger into that trio of just outside of the midfield. But we see the ultimate upgrade for my car sees us making, well, right about the 2nd or 3rd largest jump up the grid from the end of the season till now. And Toro Rosso stays level, so they don't degrade any, but they also didn't improve. And thanks to our ultimate upgrade, we are back ahead of the Toro Rosso and have closed down the gap to Force India, Sauber, and McLaren, and even Haas by quite a margin. That should help us be a little more competitive this season. And as it happens to be the aero department, where I am incredibly weak, the soon-to-come upgrades in these first few races are going to see that aero department jump, and I should start being able to handle the car around corners a lot easier, get a lot more downforce. Alright, so quick glance at the chassis department, and yes, we are significantly higher than anybody else, but it looks like Ferrari did make some upgrades as well at the end of the season. Mercedes and Red Bull, they're not that far behind, so I think they all made some minor upgrades there, and possibly Renault as well. So it might have been where those development points came in, but I'm not looking to spend any points in the chassis department right now, but we will continue to get those final upgrades completed as time goes on. But now that the aero department has reset for the season, and yes, you can see all of my upgrades in the department have remained, so no loss there. That also means that as I enter the new season and the aero department doesn't hate me as they did at the end of the year, I can get, for just 250 points, a couple upgrades going. So this first one's going to be front wing turning vanes, allowing a little more front downforce, making it a little easier to steer through the corners, and also some rear downforce for side pod turning vanes. Both going to be upgraded and added to the car by next week. At this point, that leaves 600 points, and we're going to have another couple upgrades to go onto the car, and I'll need to hang on to about 600 points next week so we can get that aero department up and going quickly. But you can see just how far miles behind we are in the aero department compared to everyone else. But we should start making some quick work and get caught up at least to the back markers. Powertrain, untouchable for now, but our next upgrade will be 1,200 points in the department efficiency. And I'm good on durability for now. Yes, we took some penalties last season, but there's other more important things than that at this point in time. Terrible news as I enter FP2. It's raining, and it's raining hard. And I've definitely got a dry setup on that I just finally got right at the end of free practice 1. And now I've got to run in heavy rain throughout this session, which is going to make things very, very difficult on me if I'm going to have any chance of completing all of the practice programs for this race, as free practice session number 3 also is going to face a bit of inclement weather at the beginning before drying out at the end. So I could be forced to wait right up until the last moment. Message from Claire Williams states, "You'll have to show some patience for the first part of the season, as we expect our initial pace to be towards the back of the grid. But don't worry, everyone's working hard, and we have great investment in the team. As long as you do your bit, we should be able to move towards the middle of the pack over the course of the year." Which I very much agree with that statement. Weather forecast, very different from what I saw in practice, and I ended up leaving about 50 R&D points on the table during practice, which was frustrating, and also I feel underprepared for the upcoming qualifying session. Long story short, FP1 was all about getting the car setup right, and it took much, much longer than it has at any other race for me. And it was literally in my final run, my final lap, where I finally felt confident, and I only finished a single race program. Normally I have 3 programs completed in FP1 is my normal routine. And then on to FP2. It was pouring down rain, and I managed to complete 1.5 programs during that time, so still well below where I would normally be at that stage. And then in FP3, the rain was a bit lighter, but it lasted for most of the session. I finished my race program, complete purple, but I was unable to complete the qualifying program or anything else for that matter, because once it did begin to dry up, then the expectation was a typical dry run, not a zero grip track that just stopped raining where it's dry enough to switch to the dry compound tires, but there was no adjustment to compensate for the lack of grip. So I was 2.5 seconds off the pace on my first lap. I was 1.8 on my second lap, and I tried to push it harder on my third lap to make up for, the huge gap that I still had to cover, and couldn't. Was losing grip, and so I was nowhere near the representative time necessary, so I didn't complete my qualifying program. That cut me short by a good 50 points on what I would have had otherwise, which isn't a huge margin, but still frustrating. And more importantly in this case, I have to now go into qualifying and do something that I haven't been able to do yet. A hard lap run in dry conditions.
Welcome to Melbourne, where qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix should be getting underway shortly. I want to talk briefly about the strategy in these qualifying sessions. Anthony Davidson, how can a driver adjust their approach to gain those critical extra tenths of a second?
Well, qualifying isn't about adjusting your approach necessarily. It's more about trying to repeat a low fuel run that you've practiced prior to this session. You're looking for perfection on the lap, and that's hard to achieve if you're trying something new. There are some variables that can stand in your way, however. Track position or unexpected yellow flags, for example. Coupled with ever-changing track conditions, it's important to be out there at the right moment. But as a driver, you have to try and ignore these distractions and just keep your mind focused on that one perfect lap.
So they just showed Esteban Ocon there, and gotta say that I feel Ocon was partially correctly, but partially undeservedly villainized for what took place in Brazil a couple weeks back. So if you didn't see the race, simple situation here. Max Verstappen was leading the race. Esteban Ocon had just pit, knocking him back out of the points, but still very much in contention for the points. But he came out of the pits just behind the race leader. Now within a few laps, he had not only overtaken Lewis Hamilton, but he had caught up to Max Verstappen on a flyer. Stayed behind him for a lap, saw that he had clearly more pace than Verstappen, who was saving the tires at that point and running much, much slower than Ocon, who was on those fresh tires and had work to do to get back up into the points, but very well could have done it. The rulebook says you're welcome to overtake. He asked his team, hey, I've got more pace than Verstappen. Can I overtake him? Team said yes. He goes around the outside of turn 1. He's got a half a car length on Verstappen. Verstappen doesn't pull out of it, doesn't leave him the room. Gets back up beside him through turn 1, defending. And then with Ocon side by side on the inside of the next part of the Senna S's in turn 2, Verstappen just comes right across the track, forcing Ocon out. He's got nowhere to go. He can't brake. It's way too late for that as they are side by side. Ocon tries his best to go up and over the sausage curb to avoid the contact, but there was no room. Verstappen did not leave him a racing line. The two make contact. Ocon gets fully blamed for it as Verstappen was the leader. In all honesty, as a racing incident, that can't be more Verstappen's fault than anything. However, because he's the race leader and Ocon was technically a lap down, all of the blame was placed squarely on Ocon. And I think Ocon is at fault to an extent that he tried to make a pass. Verstappen didn't allow him to make the pass. And so, yeah, he's probably got to try to pull out of that and get in behind Verstappen again and try, coming out of turn 3, down the straight with DRS yet again to get him before turn 4. But that loss of momentum, that loss of time, I mean, that was going to cost Ocon at least a second and a half in his pursuit of 11th and then 10th place from there, where he clearly had the pace to get back into the top 10. Again, he had just pit, and that pit, that 22 seconds that he lost, took him out of the points. Verstappen had a lot more to lose, being that he was in the race lead, and has no reason to race Esteban Ocon, yet he opted to in that situation. Now, I often support Max Verstappen, but in this case, not so sure that Verstappen made the right decision on that one. That was pretty immature of him to defend against the lapped car, who clearly had more pace. Just because he was the race leader does not mean that everybody else has to just stay behind him. Alright, well, on to our own qualifying session here in what's looking to be a challenging session for me, as we still don't have the aero, and had difficulty with the balance on this one, and this is not an easy track by any means. But let's go ahead and get to it. We're going to head out onto the track for our first lap. Finally, Alonso gets out of my way on my first lap here, which was massively compromised by the loss of downforce provided by Fernando Alonso. It's Max Verstappen ahead of me. We were relatively close, but he's not an issue as he is also on a flyer. I can tell you already, I will need another lap, as that lap I lost probably a third of a second or more, and actually Verstappen was on an in lap. So both of those cars were compromising my downforce and my lap, and I go straight to the back, behind my teammate even. So I'm going to continue around and try a second lap here, but of course now I've got Alonso also coming through, and I'm just going to let him go. Head back to the garage. We'll have to come back out for a second lap, as I'm going to be at the very back at this point in time, thanks to Alonso, who messed up both my first and, in a way, my second lap, as I decided not to compromise his, as he clearly has more pace than my car does. And as I continue on, I actually have found a bit more time. There's a little more grip than there was before. With a good 0.8 of a second better than my previous lap. That's actually still P20. So I gained a lot of time, and I'm still at the back of the grid. So I'm going to have to, and I slowed up after, so this lap's compromised. There's only a few minutes left. I don't think I'm going to have enough time to try a third run, so it looks like I will be starting from last place in this race. But forcing me to get by there. He's on an out lap, but no reason for me to be in front of him.
New drivers, new cars, and a new Formula One season. But it's the same Albert Park that we've come to know and love for more than 2 decades now that hosts the first round of a 21-race championship, taking us from here in Melbourne, Australia, across the globe before we eventually reach the season finale at Yas Marina Circuit in Abu Dhabi. Just south of Melbourne's downtown business centre is the one and only Albert Park Circuit. 3.3 miles of public roads, closed for the weekend of course, make for a bumpy circuit with little undulation. There are 16 corners around the lake and a couple of good passing opportunities here as well, thanks in part to the DRS zones into turns 1, 3 and 13. So before the off, let's remind ourselves of yesterday's qualifying session with a look at the starting grid. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and Kimi Raikkonen completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Bottas, Vettel, Max Verstappen, and Leclerc, Hülkenberg, Perez, Ocon, and Fernando Alonso, Sainz, Grosjean, Pierre Gasly, and Van Dorn. Ricciardo, they've taken a grid penalty. Ericsson, Brendan Hartley, and Kevin Magnussen. Sirotkin, and the Professor. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Okay, new season, and we're starting at the back. Let's see if we can do better in the race.
Straight to the point. New season, starting at the back. See if we can do better in the race. We're going to have to switch this strategy up to try to go on the long stint first. Looks like we can get 7 laps out of the ultra softs. So I have to go 8 on the super softs to start the race. And we've got a full 2 extra laps worth of fuel. Wow, I don't think we need that much. It's hard to save fuel load here. And you'll definitely need some for overtaking. But with 3 DRS detection zones, I think we can make up time there. So we're going to lighten this load a little bit, down to 30 kilograms. And I never did feel comfortable here during practice with the crazy weather, finding the setup so late, and it definitely translated to a difficult qualifying session, made that much harder by my first run being completely compromised by Fernando Alonso. He cost me about 7/10 of a second through the first half of the lap before he finally got out of the way. I found a single 10th of a second more on the back half of the lap in that second session, but that 8/10 of a second was still well short of where I needed to be. So we start from the back. I've only got 1 flashback at my disposal, and this is going to be a difficult track for me to run on. I think I'm going to try to hang near the back a little bit unless I get a phenomenal start, but I'm nervous about contact early in this one, and maybe try to make some passes in the open areas. However, as I've already discovered, being behind another car takes away the downforce. I already have no downforce, so it's really, really difficult to run in traffic. And I think my best bet in this race is going to be hanging back and using pit stop strategy, find some open air and get some cars that way, because I don't think I'm going to be able to run in traffic at all. So we'll see how this opening lap goes. I could be facing my second career DNF, as bad as the car is and as difficult it is to run Australia without downforce. As even on the straights, besides the one I'm sitting on right now, they're still on the curve. So you're always needing some downforce here. And we're just completely inferior to everyone else by quite the margin. Give it a few weeks, a few more races, and that downforce will start to be competitive. But this first few races of the season are going to be a real challenge. But with that, we're going to put up 5 red lights here in Melbourne, Australia, for the opening round of the second season in this Road to Glory series. We've now got the best chassis on the grid, but we are so far behind in the aerodynamics department. Once we can get that up there, though, I think things are going to start getting a lot more competitive, car-wise, in 3 to 4 races from now. Oh!
Penalty. You have a drive-through penalty.
I got a drive-through penalty. What a way to start the race. What a way to start the race. Compromise my race right off the bat. I don't think I can flashback that, can I? I can restart session. That's my one and only flashback for the whole race. That drive-through penalty ruins the whole race right off the bat.
First race of the season, and unfortunately we're at the back of the grid. Show the team what you can do.
Alright, so there's my one and only flashback. And now I've got to run the entire race from the back of the grid, where it's so hard to run. And now I got to do it without a flashback, so good luck to me here. We're going to try again. Jumped it by the tiniest margin, as they really held off on the 5 red lights. Got the tire spin too. I thought I had the good start. The inside of my teammate here, Sorokin, but he did not give me. He tried to give me racing room and at the same time not give me racing room. But you see just how far back he went right off the bat as well as I get to the inside here on the second sequence. But again, he's got the grip on the outside, and I'm so afraid of losing this wing here on this first lap that I concede the position to Sorokin yet again. This time I squeeze him out of the way.
Decent start. Good job.
Hartley's next up. Not a very good run through there. I got too tight to the apex too early. It allows Sorokin to get a run to the outside. I'm not going to block him, but I had the inside, so that allowed me to fight for it and keep the position. And we get through lap number 1. Not the cleanest lap by any means, but we get through it unscathed. And at least up 1 position now. You can see just how quickly everyone else is pulling away. Oversteer there. And that gives Sorokin a run. He's got the inside. I'm able to brake late though, and it turns to the inside for me in the next corner.
Yellow
Just
flag.
about hang on to it. Ooh, yellow flag's out. Somebody's having a problem. Oh, really?
Mind that
Great.
front wing. It'll
Great.
need replacing if it takes too much damage.
I slowed down big time. I should have gone well to the outside. So I take a little bit of damage there as Alonso was slowing us all up. And yeah, it's one thing after another. This is... Oh, come on, Sorokin. You're gonna go past me, go past me. I'm trying to let you go. I don't want any further damage. I'm gonna have to race a couple laps. I don't know. We'll have to see how this is to drive on. I've got 1 position now. Fernando Alonso is out of the race. He's the master of being out of the race this year. Fewest laps completed in real life. You know, and as much as McLaren can have the finger pointed at them for that, I think Alonso has already given up on F1. He's done. He wants out. He's finishing his contract this year because he has to, not because he wants to. So I think he's been more than happy to have Lando Norris in the car almost every FP1 the back half of the season here. And more than that, I think he's more than happy to be out of races. Like, I don't think he wants to be on the track. And
Battery charge is low. If we turn down the ERS deployment,
every
we can
chance he's
harvest
had,
more energy.
the tiniest little problem. Oh, okay, we're gonna park it. It's just me. I know there's a lot of big-time Alonso fans out there, but being that I've grown up in the US and we didn't really get F1 coverage uniformly until recently, I didn't grow up with Alonso being amazing. I've seen him in the McLaren after he left Ferrari. In fact, his first year in the McLaren. And all I've seen is him struggle and him have constant attitude. He's like the worst human being among the drivers in terms of attitude. And so all I see is an adult behaving like a toddler. So I can see that there's talent. I can see that he does make the car work better than certainly Van Doren has. So I can see that there's some talent, but to me, the talent's not made up for by the behavior. But anyway, Alonso out of this race, and his turns are a turn like that you can normally go flat out on. I can't, just because that loss of downforce, damage to the wing, and no downforce in the first place, which I was already saying was the big problem for this race. At least I have clean air to run in, but it looks like I'm going to be running on my own for all or most of this race, because by the time I do make my pit stop, it's going to be too late. I mean, I'm losing all sorts of ground, even to my teammate. So a little bit of a surprise here. On lap 6, I find myself in traffic. I have not pit yet, but the traffic has moved itself backwards to me, as a lot of the top 10 cars on those ultra softs that they started have pit and actually dropped back far enough that Bottas was out in front of me, but he's now pulling away. And I've got a Force India behind me. Looks like a Sauber behind him. There's Force India. No point trying to stop them.
The super soft tire. That's the super soft on the car ahead.
Rocket into the pits this time. That's going to put me ahead of him for now. Got the DRS that time. That's going to help. Comes Ocon just behind me.
Okay,
DRS again.
Reduce ERS deployment. Gap to teammate behind is 6.6 seconds.
Ooh, got a touch from behind. Not once, but twice.
Recommend you box for a new one. Check
wow.
your MFD for a new strategy option.
Well, that's 3 cars, and I take another bump. Ricardo, I get the warning, even though Ricardo hits me. I was all the way to the edge of the track. And there goes Leclerc, and I'm already back to 16th, and I haven't even hit. And I take a 5-second penalty for being 1 mile an hour over the speed limit. This is going to put me back to last because I was already slow.
Go now.
Penalty's gonna come later, apparently. But 1 mile an hour over the speed limit. And I'm already way behind, 19 seconds behind Sorokin at this point. And probably then some as I get out of the pits. So my race is done. All I can hope for at this point is some cars not finishing the race. I'm having a bad race here today, but at least looks like I've avoided the DNF. That is, if I make it to the end of this race without crashing myself, but no reason to believe that I will crash. There are a few areas on track that if you push it, it can come back and bite you. I've got the setup set up in a way that does hurt my lap times, but does give me a little better control. But I don't do that. It's been traffic where I've had the problems so far. Alonso's retirement being the first one, which means Alonso has compromised my race in more than one way. He compromised my qualifying, he compromised my race. Of course, that was down to me. I had a lot of room. There was a big pileup of cars behind him, not wanting to go by because of the double yellows, yet he was out of the race. So we were all getting held up by his retirement, and I couldn't go by And so I tried to check up, but I couldn't check up in time, and I got that light touch on the gearbox of Hartley enough to take off some of the winglets. But like I said, these first few races of the season are going to be the real challenge. Now my next 2 races are good tracks for me. This one is one of my worst. I really, really struggle here. Just that constant left, right, left, right, left, right. And so many of these left, rights are moderate. If I had a racing wheel, which I am planning on getting one in the near future, but if I had a racing wheel now... Woo, oh! Well, there goes my race.
Are you alright? Engine off.
A little too much curving, and then caught a piece of grass, and we are done. So I opened the season with the DNF, which I suppose isn't a big deal. My race was done anyway. I was so far behind, but I was afraid of that curb, so I held the wheel straight a little bit off the curb, and it shot me across the track. I didn't react in time, and I'm done. So there's a retirement. I'm going to finish in P19. Let's see the results of this thing. That's disappointing, though. That's gonna hurt the team opinion. These next few races, like I said, are going to be difficult, but I don't want to suddenly go from top driver to nearly getting fired. So I've got to avoid these DNFs here in these next couple of races. Hamilton takes the race win, though.
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, and to stay out of trouble.
Hulkenberg, nice finish for him in P5. The Renault's looking pretty strong to start the season this year. And it looks like Raikkonen takes second with Max Verstappen in third to finish the podium off. And after taking second in the championship a year ago, Lewis Hamilton opens the season with the points lead.
It's time to see
He's probably going to be
how
hungry to get that back this year.
Championship. Lewis Hamilton takes the lead of the Drivers' Championship. And now I'd like to ask you, Anthony Davidson, who was your driver of the day?
Well, he had a great drive today, somewhat unexpected maybe, but I'm going to go for Kevin Magnussen. Quick, clean, and in control. It was everything you could ask for.
And here's how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes move to the top of the table. That's it for today's Grand Prix, and from Ant and I, it's goodbye, and see you again next time.
Ferrari picks up just 18 points, all 18 coming from Kimi Raikkonen, as Vettel out of the points. Vettel finished in P14 in this one, 40 seconds down, so he must have had a problem. Raikkonen was just 2 seconds behind Hamilton, and then there was quite the gap back to Max Verstappen, who overtook Bottas to get onto the podium. Bottas in fourth. That's what gives Mercedes the edge at this point. Hulkenberg, as we said before, solid finish for him in 5th place. Perez up to 6th, even though the Force India is looking a lot weaker this year. Van Dorn, the McLaren in the points, all the way up in 7th after starting in P14. Of course, his teammate Alonso finished in dead last. The only car behind me. Magnussen 8th, Ocon 9th, and Ricciardo, after starting in P15 with grid penalties in the first race of the year, finishes only as high as P10. My teammate Sorokin ended up being the last car on the track, a few seconds behind Leclerc. Poor Leclerc, who started 6th, only managed to finish in P17. Gasly in 16, Hartley in 15. The Toro Rossos are the ones, and the Saubers, that I should be racing here in the coming races. And it's so weird that Vettel all the way down there in P14. I said he must have had some sort of problem. But look how close the back of the grid was backed up. Van Dorn 27, Sorokin 46 seconds. So that whole back end of the grid from Hulkenberg, really, and honestly from Verstappen, quite close. Excuse me. But after a terrible opening race to the season, I've got a lot of work to do in the coming weeks, but I've got a couple new aero upgrades coming right away for the next race that'll immediately have an impact on the performance of the car. It's going to take more than just 2 upgrades on the aero department to get us caught up to the back of the grid, though. So, like I said, it's going to take a few races. But we're going to head into round 2 of the championship next time. But that's going to do it for this episode on Decathlon Gamer. And remember, I'm aiming for the best of the best. So if you're ready to join me on my journey, hit subscribe. And tune in next time
Well,
on my road to the
things
record.
didn't really go your way today.
Here's the interview.
Tell us what happened. That crash looked pretty serious. Can you walk me through what happened?
I'm gonna blame it on the engine department because
Had a bit of
not
contact
gonna do any
today. Who was
upgrades
at
there
fault
anytime
there?
soon. I'm gonna blame him. Just for the showmanship.
It was more like dodgems than Formula 1 today, wasn't it?
And clowns, yeah. Toro Rosso. Ooh, they don't like me for that answer.
Great. Well, that's everything.
Heading to the weighbridge. Alright, bye for now.